You know, Alan Snell is a man of many talents. He's a journalist, author, and storyteller. But his passion is sitting on the seat of a bike and pedaling wherever the bike takes him. Alan has pedaled across the country a couple of times, racking up miles of entertaining and unique stories that can be found in his new book called Bicycle Man: Life of Journeys.
I kind of look at myself as a journalist on wheels, and I love to document, I love to talk with people, I love to see nature, and my vehicle just happens to be the bicycle. And that's why I don't really bicycle with a lot of groups, because I stop a lot, I talk a lot with people, I love to just explore. In fact, that's why I kind of look at myself as a modern 21st century explorer who just happens to use a bicycle, and I use a pen and pad to document and a camera to take photos. And I have assembled 37 years worth of bicycle travel stories, bicycle travel adventures in just one book. And I did it during the pandemic. I wanted to get something positive out of this crazy time. And I said, you know what? I've been meaning to do a bicycle book for literally decades. I said, I'm going to do it right now, right during the pandemic. And here is the tangible result of just 37 years worth of all kinds of bicycle stories.
In fact, there are 42 stories in 8 chapters of real-life adventures and some misadventures, 272 pages that will take readers on a journey from California to Florida, not in a race, but in a meandering, well-written way that begins on a college campus in upstate New York.
The bicycle to me was the one place in my life where I had complete control of my life. I was independent, I had control of my life, and I no longer had to work for anyone. I simply bicycled, and that's where I got my love for bicycling, really was from those days of working actually for Liz Claiborne. During the summers when I was working my way through college, the bicycle gave me this sense of freedom and autonomy. And later on, after I graduated from college, it turned out to be a tremendous transportation tool. When I was a journalist, I used to use the bicycle on assignments. In fact, some of the stories I have in this book is about covering Mayor Wellington Webb of the city of Denver. And I would just show up at assignments on my bicycle. I used to bicycle to his house to interview him. I used to bicycle on the local trails in the city of Denver when they were working on issues about homeless people living on the trails. So I found the bicycle was like a great transportation tool for journalism, but ultimately the bicycle was my vehicle of choice to explore life and to see the world, and it allowed me a sense of connection to people, to businesses, to nature, to everything that I've documented in this book. And there's all kinds of stuff in here. There's some really wacky, original bike riding in here.
Since Alan wasn't on a race, he allowed himself to pause on 2 cross-country trips to experience the stories, history, and people that make this country unique and sometimes odd.
Most people go from west to east, but I went from east to west across the country. I did it solo. And when you bike solo, at the end of the day, it really forces you to talk to people, because a lot of times I would just roll out my sleeping bag in churches all across the country and then get up at 5 o'clock the next morning and off I went. But like you said, it gave me the exposure to some amazing experiences that I could not create by myself. I bicycled with buffaloes in South Dakota, in Montana. I explored this crazy coffee house that had the breakfast challenge. They made literally 15 pounds worth of pancakes, and if you're able to eat the breakfast plus the pancakes, you got the breakfast for free. And the owner told me that only 2 people ever got the breakfast for free. It was called the Breakfast Challenge. One guy was a bicyclist who ended up throwing up after he left the restaurant, and he didn't know if that really counted since he didn't digest the food.
Sometimes Alan pedaled his way unknowingly into some historic locations, like the Sack of Shelby, where heavyweight champ Jack Dempsey fought Tommy Gibbons on the high plains of Montana.
That was a community that raised something like $30,000 or whatever it was, it's in the book, to build a temporary wooden stadium to house a Dempsey boxing match. in Shelby, Montana, of all places. I kind of laugh because here we are watching the Raiders build a $2 billion stadium project, and in Shelby, Montana, they're building a wooden stadium to house a world championship boxing match with the world-famous Dempsey.
It's too crazy not to relive that history someday, rekindled in Alan's book, like the crazy story entitled Farmer and the Manhunt.
You never know what you bicycle into. I was bicycling in Minnesota, of all places, and there was a farmer who was accused of murder because I think there was a banker who came to foreclose on his farm, and I believe the farmer shot the banker and was on the run. And here I come, bicycling into town. Cops are wondering, who the hell is this guy from New York with a big beard and bicycling through Minnesota while they're trying to hunt down a farmer who shot a banker who's trying to foreclose on the farm. So, you know, that's the thing. My favorite author is John Steinbeck, and I lived the bicycle life based on John Steinbeck's famous mantra, which was that you don't take trips, the trips take you. And that's why I kind of looked at it. I didn't know how or what would happen during the days of all these crazy bicycle rides. I just knew something memorable would happen, and I knew something eventually, something to write home about would happen.
Is it any surprise the Bicycle Man includes the 1989 California quakes in his book? Just so happens he was pedaling his bike when the city shook.
And all of a sudden, I could feel my handlebars shaking and vibrating wildly. It felt as if I was biking over railroad tracks. And I looked to the side up to a 6-story building, and there was this huge billboard just flapping in the wind. I'm wondering, what is this? And then I hear someone shrieking, "Earthquake." And I was only 2 miles from the famous, I believe it was the Nimitz 2-level freeway in the Oakland area. And it was a tragic, horrible scene. The upper deck of the Nimitz had fallen down on the bottom level and crushed the cars on the bottom level. So that was another crazy bicycle adventure, living through the 1989 earthquake of the San Francisco Bay Area.
Snell is a huge bicycle advocate, and many of his stories take place in Florida, where he spent nearly a decade. One of those involves Dunkin' Donuts and a bad Tampa Rays baseball team.
In Tampa Bay, the Rays had a deal with Dunkin' Donuts. After every win, you can go into a Dunkin' Donuts and get a free donut. Just say, hey, the Rays won, give me a donut. And
They weren't winning at the time.
No, and that's why Dunkin' Donuts thought they had a good deal. They wouldn't be handing out too many donuts. One little problem. The Rays went on this amazing winning streak in 2007. They won 97 games. They went to the World Series. They're winning games left and right under Joe Madden. And they're getting free donuts for thousands of people every day at Dunkin' Donuts. And I created a tour of Dunkin' Donuts. I actually created a batting lineup of my 9 favorite donuts. The PR guy for Dunkin' Donuts read my bicycle blog, saw the entry, and said, we gotta hook you up, man. We gotta connect with you. And I made a promise. In the middle of the season, if the Rays made the playoffs, I would create a 100-mile bicycle ride that would include as many Dunkin' Donuts stores as possible, and we'd end the ride at Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg. Lo and behold, the Rays clinched the playoffs. I came through with a 100-mile bicycle ride. I stopped at 13 different Dunkin' Donuts, got my free donuts at every store, handing out Dunkin' Donut hats and shirts and blankets and towels.
Some of the author's work detailed on the pages of his book are his efforts to make the streets safer for cyclists. He's gone to Washington to lobby on behalf of cyclists. He's organized bicycle groups and festivals.
That was an amazing 7 years of my life. I actually dropped out of newspapers and worked full-time doing all kinds of bicycle promotions. One time I used to put on an annual bicycle festival called the Bicycle Bash, and I would bicycle with this long trailer that was behind me promoting the event, and we had all kinds of fun, all kinds of crazy misadventures with the bicycle trailer. Like I said, I'm just a journalist on wheels documenting life, and every wacky, zany character misadventure, but even some, sad stuff too. The last chapter of this book is about my mom, who I taught how to ride a bicycle very much late in life. She was in her 50s and even early 60s when I taught her to ride a bicycle. And before she died, at least I knew she knew what it felt to ride a bicycle, to feel the wind through your hair. So I wrote about that whole experience, about my mom learning to ride a bicycle very much late in life before she died. So that book, that chapter, it has kind of a sad story, but also in a way it's a touching story as well.
Bicycle Man starts with the legend of Bill Fox, who you don't know but will learn to appreciate after reading a few chapters. The book ends with the author's mom finally, after all these years, learning to ride a bike, and his friend telling him to remember the good stuff.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, Mom said after her first solo bike ride. That was amazing. My friend Paul advised me to remember the good stuff. That's why I think of my mom on that white bike with a face that exuded pure joyfulness. Mom was so proud and happy, and her laugh from riding that bike under her own power still echoes in my ear. In the early mornings of August 16th, 2013, Mom died in a hospice outside Baltimore. But she fulfilled one of her childhood dreams. She knew the joy of riding a two-wheeler. This week, I hold that memory close to my heart, remembering the good stuff.
All right, if you'd like to read any of the 42 stories in the book, check it out right here. Go to asnell at lvsportsbiz.com. Thank you, Al. Still ahead, Raiders will be training for the season in Henderson, but